Whoa, time for guest hosts. Whoa, it's time for guest hosts. Whoa, love the guest hosts. I just want a guest host. It's episode 7 of Guest Host Raw, the show where I review all the guest host episodes of Monday Night Raw. And folks, on this point in the timeline, we are less than 2 weeks away from the biggest party of the summer, the Summerfest. And, you know, with so many storylines we got to build to and get to that show, how will these next 2 episodes of Raw and their respective guest hosts get us there? We're going to find out with this week's installment from August 10th, 2009 at the Saddle Dome in Calgary, Alberta, Canada. And the guest host for this week, who we won't see quite yet, is WWE Hall of Famer Sergeant Slaughter. Will this super American gimmick be put to the test in this very Canadian city, and will that matter? Yes, it will. But first, we begin with the arena shrouded in darkness. We hear Lillian Garcia introduce the WWE Champion Randy Orton, and he is there in the ring. The lights come up, and he's already standing there in the ring. He is teleported. What a very weird way to cold open this show, with the champion just already standing there. There's a bit of a mixed reaction for Orton here. It's mostly boos. And we hear Jerry Lawler with his first utterance of the phrase Bizarro Land tonight. Oh boy, if we're in Canada, we're in Bizarro Land. We're up is down and black is white. And boy, they never react to the wrestlers the way we want them to. But I think they were really just kind of like hedging their bet with that. Assuming that the Canadian crowd was going to do that, but they don't here. All night, it's pretty much like how you would expect the crowd to respond to faces and heels and everything. And Canada had always been kind of like the cool, like, you know, counterculture. We're going to do the opposite. It's always the opposite. It's not so much tonight, don't worry. And Orton's getting booed, you know, just like how he would in Bizarro Land. And so he's got a microphone. He says he wants to address the rumors about him. People have been saying that I don't want to fight John Cena at SummerSlam. And these are the same people who say that I'm a bully and that I bullied Jeremy Piven last week to get what I want. Is that what they're going with for the explanation for what happened in that last episode? So anyway, he says, you know, I bullied him for the same reason I can bully each and every one of you. It's because I can. And he's really laying on the heel stuff where he's saying, you people are beneath me. You don't matter to me. I don't care about your opinions and the rumors, because the fact is at SummerSlam, I will beat John Cena. That is not a rumor. That is a fact. I guarantee it will happen at SummerSlam. Then we hear John Cena's music play. He comes out, and it's no playing to the crowd. He is just mean mugging. This is serious John Cena now. He just power walks his way to the ring, gets right in Orton's face, and he's got a mic of his own. He says, every week you talk about rumors and facts, truth and lies, and I'm a very patient man, but you make these areas gray, and that makes me angry. What? What a line. Wow, every week you talk about... First of all, no, he doesn't. Orton doesn't talk about rumors or facts in his promos and everything. What a great... You make these areas gray, and that makes me angry. And Cena's like, I'm ready to snap. I'm ready to go right now. Like, Orton does not know what to make of this. Like, he looks like he is a bit caught off guard by Cena's incredible intensity, especially when you look at how he's been the last couple of weeks, and he's just like, hey kids, hoo-hoo, honk honk, and he's like this big clown, and now he puts on the serious face. You know, what took you so long? He says, I'm tired of you talking about what you're going to do and talking about like the business owes you something, how you can bully people just because you can. Like, ooh, he growls a little bit at you can at the end of that sentence. Like, that's what really sticks in his craw. Like, the bullying really gets to him. And he says, all right, you want to bully someone? Bully me. We may have a fight in 2 weeks from now, but right now you're staring at the face of 250 pounds of problem that is getting ready to tear your body in half. Oh, all right. Go off, John. Like, man, where's this John Cena been? I love the intensity and the fiery promo he has here. And they're like nose to nose, forehead to forehead. It's looking pretty tense. You just want to see someone lean in for a smooch at that point. But Orton backs away. They stand around for a bit. Then we hear, well, it's the big show. And out come the Unified Tag Team Champions, Jericho. We see Chris Jericho's wearing a suit, the Big Show wearing a much larger suit. If I didn't know any better, I would say these guys looked like that really quirky, mid-market law firm in your town that has this unlimited advertising budget, and they also have really quirky and funny billboards. The Big Show's like, you guys think you can intimidate each other, but I'm all about intimidation. I breathe towards someone, and they're intimidated. And then Cena chimes in, well, yeah, it's because your breath smells like Shaquille O'Neal's jockstrap. And Jericho is very much pandering to the Canadian fans here. He's like, we're here in my home country. This is where I was born. It's where I was trained to wrestle. And then Cena points out, and this is the country you moved away from. And the fans are chanting, Cena sucks at him for that. How dare you point out that Jericho doesn't live in Canada anymore. And Jericho says that he talked with the guest host, Sergeant Slaughter, before the show, and he was able to see things my way. So I'm gonna do something that I've never done before, and I'm gonna beat you, John, in a match tonight. So one-on-one, Chris Jericho and John Cena. And then Orton jumps in after that and says, well, maybe after the match, I can punt Cena in the skull. And then the Big Show's like, well, actually, Randy, the reason Chris got this match is because I was standing next to him, and I want a singles match too. I want people to forget about Shaquille O'Neal, so I'm going to have a singles match with you. And then their music plays, and Cena and Orton are both, oh, and, that's the segment. But I'm like, why? Why are Jericho and Big Show even in the business of Cena and Orton right now? They have got nothing to do with each other. The Cena and Orton bit I liked. And then, again, with Jericho and Big Show getting involved, it's like, you realize they're also heels, and like, why do they want to fight Orton? Also, it's non-title. It's kind of confusing why they're involved here. After the commercial break, we get this like online trivia. Who did Sergeant Slaughter beat to become the WWE champion? And the options were like Randy Savage, Hulk Hogan, and the Ultimate Warrior. Ooh, vote for who you think did it. For those of you with terrible goldfish-like memories or no access to other websites. But anyway, the first match of the evening is a fatal four-way to see who will get a future Divas championship match. It's Gail Kim, Alicia Fox, Kelly Kelly, and Beth Phoenix. The match begins. They've split off in different pairs for a while. There's a period where they try to blow up the referee with multiple pinfalls, one after the other. At one point, Beth manages to stack Gail and Kelly onto one shoulder and does the double Canadian backbreaker. I thought that was really cool until Alicia breaks it up. Cole describing Gail Kim at one point as elastic-like, which I thought was a very interesting call. Like, she dives on to Alicia on the outside. Kelly dives on to the both of them. And then like Beth teases a dive as well, but it doesn't happen. But man, this match is great. Like, this is a lot of fun action in this matchup here. Beth is hung up on the corner. You've got Eat Defeat on Alicia Fox for Gail Kim to win the match. Man, this was a breath of fresh air. This was easily the best women's match that I have seen in the 7 editions of Raw that I have watched for this series so far. So by a mile, that was a lot of fun to watch. Great opener, but also I'm like, we're getting Gail versus Mickie James in the near future, which is surprising to me because it is face versus face, but we'll see how that goes. But then right after that, we hear Sergeant Slaughter's music play, and sure enough, there he is, the former WWE champion, making his way to the stage. Actually gets a nice kind of respectable sounding reaction. We even see some people in the crowd like saluting Slaughter when he comes out. And then right when the music fades and he goes, thank you, boo! Like, well, okay then, make up your minds, Calgary. He's very welcoming, he's very hospitable. He's like, wow, what great neighbors we have to the north here. And man, I love Canadians. This is great. Let's pay tribute to the Canadian flag, everyone. And they show the flag on the screen. There's a bit of a Canada chant. And then all of a sudden we see like that red circle with a line through it over the Canadian flag. And what? What is this betrayal, Sergeant Slaughter? The American, how could you betray us like this? And then Slaughter's like, I realized if it wasn't for the good old US of A, you would all be speaking Russian and French by now. In fact, some of you are speaking French, and it's embarrassing, and you rely on our protections, and you take them for granted. And that's why I've come up with a better idea. That's why you should all pay respects to a real flag. And then the American flag pops up on the screen. Huge boos from this Canadian crowd as Slaughter recites the Pledge of Allegiance. And then he says, you're dismissed, and his music plays. And I'm like, are you gonna make some fucking matches or what? And he's like, yes, how about Jack Swagger and Evan Bourne again? Like, fuck, we're getting the rubber match after the last 2 weeks of these guys fighting. Bourne, this match, I think, is actually my favorite of the three, just because of how much we get to see Evan Bourne show off in this one. A really cool springboard meteora to the outside onto Swagger. That blew me away. Bourne goes to this flip over the ropes. I love Swagger's cutoff. Swagger doesn't even do anything. He just moves to the side and lets Evan Bourne just like land back first on his own knee. I thought that was really funny. Bourne goes for a head scissors. It's countered into a powerbomb attempt, but Bourne counters that into a surprise roll-up. And again, there's a kick out there. Swagger's had enough. There's this confusion, or this kind of like, it looks like kind of an awkward transition in the corner, but Swagger just like powers through it, hits the gut wrench powerbomb to win the match. So there we go. 2-1, Swagger wins. Then after the match, he's on the microphone and he just reiterates who he is. He is the two-time All-American, a real American, Jack Swagger was how he said it. But then we get MVP's music interrupting, and then Vontavious Porter makes his way to the ring, and he says, you know, the only people who care less about you being an American than me are all these Canadians here. And he says, they're not booing you because you're American, they're booing you because you're an arrogant, loudmouthed jerk with a pronounced lisp. Like, again, they're making fun of the speech impediment. Like, man, sure is a good thing Cody Rhodes went and took those speech pathology classes to train that out of him. Otherwise, he would never hear the end of it, and the timeline would be very different. And he challenges Swagger to a match tonight. Or are you just an all-American wimp? I'm like, dude, you just wrestled. Like, what are you doing? And so Swagger's like, you want an answer? Maybe next week is what he says. So then MVP just shoves him on his ass. Swagger sits there and just kind of looks up at MVP, kind of like an angry child for a minute, and then he powders and walks away. The match itself with Evan Bourne, like I said, this was a good little match. Had a lot of cool moments. I think it was my favorite of the three. I just don't like the fact we had to get 3 weeks in a row of it. Well, so far on the show, they have been promoting that Triple H is on the search for his long-lost tag team partner, Shawn Michaels. We've not seen Shawn since WrestleMania when he lost to The Undertaker, and so Triple H is trying to get the band back together for the fight against Legacy. So we go to this pre-tape segment where it's some office building somewhere. It's an office cafeteria. Triple H walks in, he's on his phone looking for Shawn. He looks behind him and he sees somebody with a long blonde ponytail. Oh, baby, this is Shawn. And then Triple H just goes right up to this guy and goes, well, that's different from the chaps I'm used to seeing you in, sexy boy. Which is a statement you would totally just drop in on somebody who you don't know for sure it's them in an unfamiliar setting. Anyway, the guy turns around, it's not Shawn, but he's definitely, smitten with Triple H. I mean, who wouldn't be? And he's like, oh, well, those are nice. Well, I get off at 7. And Triple H is like, I bet you do. And then he walks off, and we hear this frantic ringing of a bell, and we hear this annoying child asking for her burger, and the camera moves down to the other part of the cafeteria. We see the girl, she's banging on the bell. All of a sudden, we see this hands, adult hands, clamp on the bell. We zoom out, and it's Shawn Michaels, Chef Shawn Michaels. And boy, he looks like he's at the end of his rope with this girl, who he says, the burger needs to be grilled on both sides, sweetheart, so why don't you go back to your table and stuff your face with tater tots, and then I'll call you when the burger's ready. And so the girl leaves, and Shawn has this great line where he's like, take your daughter to work day. Brilliant idea. And like, my first interpretation of that, like, was that his daughter? Because that would have been a hilarious interaction there, It's like he thinks he's yelling at a stranger. It's like, my kid's being an asshole. It kind of reminds me of this, from UHF, the Weird Al movie, where the first scene where you find the villain and he's yelling at the corporate people. And he's like, RJ Fletcher, the bad guy's yelling at the one board member. And he's like, you think I pay you to think? But Dad, shut up. Like, that's kind of what I thought. So anyway, the segment just ends with Triple H, like, seeing his friend in this completely different state than when he's used to seeing. He's like, what? And that's how we end part 1 of the cafeteria stories. We will be back to see Triple H's search and his quest to, recruit Shawn Michaels back into the fold later in this episode. But so far, it's very interesting. Well, here's a surprising sight, a pole match, specifically a contract on a pole match. And here's another surprise. Last couple of weeks, we've been seeing some people, some mid-card acts make their returns to WWE. A couple weeks ago, it was Chris Masters. This week, it's Eugene. Nick Dinsmore, who, spent a lot of time in OVW before getting the Eugene character and getting that really over in about 04, 05 WWE. He was released from the company a couple of years prior to this, and a few weeks before this episode, he was actually rehired as kind of a wrestler trainer kind of role. So this is his first appearance back on TV, and he's in this contract on a pole match. The winner will get a contract on Raw, and his opponent is this masked individual named the Calgary Kid, who gets a nice reaction. He's coming out with the Canadian colors. He's got the Calgary Flames jersey on. Real hometown boy and whatnot. So he is this unknown person. The match begins. Calgary Kid tries to fool Eugene into looking the other way, just climb up and get the pole, but Eugene is too smart for that. He's ending up hitting his rock bottom and the people's elbow combination to a real just muddled, muted reaction. The crowd does not care about Eugene the way they did a few years ago. And so really uneventful finish. They're both kind of scrapping up near the pole. Calgary Kid knocks Eugene off. He grabs the contract and he wins. And then after the victory, he helps Eugene up, but then hits the skull-crushing finale, the Calgarian skull-crushing finale. But then Calgary Kid unmasks, and it's The Miz, who last episode, was banned from Raw forever, for an eternity, by Jeremy Piven. And so, what, his word means nothing now? Because Miz won this match under a false identity? Oh man, so much for ultimate power. Also, we couldn't go a week without The Miz on this show. He's that important to the brand that you can't even sell a Miz is banned from Raw for more than a week. Oh, and by the way, Nick Dinsmore would be fired again just days after this episode of Raw. They show us a recap of the Big Show being an idiot last week against Kofi Kingston, and then we go to the Big Show's match against Randy Orton. And we get Jerry Lawler mentioning Bizarro World for the second time tonight. And this is kind of a bizarre matchup, because if you put a heel against a heel in a city where you don't really know how they're going to react either way, what do you expect from a match like this? Is there any surprise that the reactions to pretty much this whole match are pretty quiet and confused? The match begins with a long stare down, and you forget, how tall Randy Orton really is when he's standing up next to the Big Show. Show only has maybe 5 or 6 inches on him, and that's really interesting to see. So it's all Big Show for the first part of this match. He's throwing Orton around, he's stepping on him, he's choking him, he's grabbing him by the neck, doing all sorts of big man things. And then they eventually fight their way to the ropes. Orton is able to hit the draping DDT. We get some Garvin stomps. So Orton's starting to make his comeback. The crowd is kind of into it now. They want to see how Orton will escape this. He goes to the RKO. The Big Show blocks it. And so now Big Show's rearing up for his big punch. Orton ducks the punch, which honestly I'm surprised more people just didn't do. And then he leaves the ring and he gets himself counted out. Well, that was kind of disappointing. Boy, the WWE Champion sure loses a lot these days. What a loser the WWE Champion is here. I hate matches like this. And why would you book your champion to look so weak? I just don't get it. Again, don't put yourself in this position by booking him against another heel in the Big Show. Who's benefiting from this? We return to Texas for the continuing misadventures of Hunter and Chef Shawn. And my favorite part of this is the very beginning when they roll tape and there's so much pad on the video they're using. Shawn hasn't started his blocking yet. He's just standing frozen in place. And then he starts arranging the shit. Oh, I could not believe that. But anyway, Hunter's I can't believe that you're here as a cook. And Shawn's I'm not a cook. I'm a chef. I got the hat. I got the jacket. I feel every time we see Shawn on this sketch tonight, every time we come back to him, there's going to be just more and more stains on his jacket. But the whole theme with this segment is, Shawn says over and over, it's hey, that life from WWE is over. After WrestleMania, I just wanted to get away from it. And I like it here, People respect me. People treat me nice. And then we see the little girl from before say, hey, these tater tots suck. And my dad's a VP, so you better step up, monkey. And throws them at his face. And then Shawn is you know what? people like me here, and the best thing is I'm really good at what I do. And as he's saying that, the fire on the grill behind him is growing. And then Triple H points it out, and Shawn's like, oh my God, the grill's on fire. And then he runs back there to the fire extinguisher and comes back with a lot of soot on his face. And he's just like, all right, I'll listen. And, that was a good bit. I gotta say, for all the complaining I've done about DX and Triple H and all that stuff, sometimes the humor hits, and this was good. This has been a good bit so far. I think this is one of my favorite parts of this episode, is just the banter between Triple H and Shawn, and then we'll get more of this as the show goes on, but this was really good. Hey, did you know WWE.com gets way more unique visitors than these fucking websites? On we go to MVP versus Chris Masters. It's a rematch from 2 episodes ago when Masters re-debuted with the company in that Beat the Clock challenge and actually cost MVP a chance at advancing. So early on, Masters gets the advantage. He yoinks MVP right off the turnbuckle. MVP fights out of the chin lock. He makes his comeback. He hits the ball and elbow. Masters goes for his lock, but MVP just slips out of it, hits the worst move of all time to win. And wow, that was quick and easy. Sure makes me care about Chris Masters coming back. But oh wait, here comes Jackie Swags. He's back and he's still upset over what happened earlier. As MVP is distracted by him, Masters puts the lock on him once again. That allows Swagger to hit a cheap shot and also hit the gut wrench powerbomb to stand tall. Not a bad progression of the storyline this week. I think this is the kind of stuff they should have been doing earlier, honestly. At least Swagger won his match and stands tall and actually looks like intimidating this week. We go to our conclusion of Cafeteria Stories. We see Shawn and Hunter both behind the counter working the grill. Why Triple H and Shawn flip burgers that way is truly bonkers. They're just going, wow, they're just constantly moving. They got to keep their hands busy down there. Shawn's using a spatula and a fork to flip the burgers. It is just madness here as they're talking. Triple H eventually does put, the chef's hat and the apron on. It's like, oh, this actually feels really nice. It really adds a lot. And so Trips is trying to convince Shawn, you need to come back. You need to help me fight Legacy at SummerSlam. And Shawn goes, I thought it was called the Summerfest. It's a nice little throwback, and I'm glad that they're willing to, laugh at it as well. And suddenly we hear someone yell, Hickenbottom! And it's, no, it's not BG James challenging him to a match at the Alamo. It's some boss. It's Shawn Michaels' boss. And Triple H is like, Hickenbottom? And Shawn's like, I needed something for the anonymity. And so the boss is yelling at Shawn for, oh my God, you had the grease fire and you yelled at this girl. I should fire you right now. And Shawn's finally had enough. He is snapped and he hits this guy who is not Stan. He hits wannabe Stan with the sweet chin music. And then he's like, that's it. I'm joining you, Triple H, but first there's one more thing I gotta do. I gotta kick this little girl in the face too. So finally, off camera, he does the super kick and you hear this girl go, ah, and the salad comes flying out. And then he sets the kitchen on fire. I quit. Break it down. It's like, holy shit. Things took a real big turn. This was a very entertaining series of bits. If there's one thing you can get and enjoy from 09 DX reunion, it's got to be this, because this was very entertaining. I had a good time watching the journey, rewatching it, and seeing, Shawn coming around to it. They had some good comic chops, I'll give them that. They show us the results of the online trivia poll from earlier. Who did Sergeant Slaughter beat to become the champion? Only 51% of people guessed the Ultimate Warrior. Is Google not available on these computers you are also voting on? Anyway, here's Sergeant Slaughter again, addressing the house. And he's like, hey, I want to thank y'all for being great sports. I was poking fun a little earlier, but hey, it's all fun and games because Canada, US, we're all part of the WWE universe together, right? So let's all be friends. In fact, this is such a big deal to be here in Calgary. There's somebody else I want to bring back, and it's very fitting we're here in Calgary for it. So, and then he says, ladies and gentlemen, he tries to say ladies and gentlemen, and just gives up. And he's like, the best there is, the best there was, the best there ever will be. And the crowd's like, holy shit, what is this? We hear Bret Hart's music. What the fuck? Bret Hart, oh my God, is he back here in Calgary? Oh man, I mean, the rumors have always been persistent, but it's, no, it's not Bret Hart. It's Jim Duggan. He comes out, he's waving Old Glory, he's going ho. the fans have been hosed again, and they're booing the fuck out of Duggan and Slaughter. And, I was like, come on, why can't you give us a bone and give us Jim Duggan from the Team Canada era? Like, that would have been funny. Like, you can see you have the double swerve, where it's like Bret Hart's music plays, and then it's actually Jim Duggan, but he's Team Canada from 2000 Jim Duggan at first, and oh yay, and then Duggan rips off the shit, he's, I'm actually American, ho! We get a recap of Chavo Guerrero fighting Mark Henry last week in his never-ending string of humiliations, and gosh, I wonder what's gonna happen next. We go to a tag team match now, where we see Hornswoggle and Mark Henry come into the ring together. Hey, remember when Mark Henry came to Raw and like beat the WWE champion clean, and then that was never brought up again? So they're supposed to fight Chavo and a partner of his choosing, but Guerrero comes out in his street clothes and he says, hey, the injuries that I sustained last week, I'm not healed from them 100% yet, but I did find a replacement tag team to fight you, The Legacy. So Cody Rhodes and Child Ted make their way to the ring, and Mark Henry now is very concerned. Hornswoggle looks concerned. No more laughing in this one. But the match begins. Mark is very strong, holding his own against both members of Legacy, throwing his weight around. But eventually the lads are just too quick, and they're able to wear him down. There's a great moment. Mark blocks a double suplex, hits one of his own. He hits the strongest slam alive onto Ted. He tags in Hornswoggle, who's ready to hit the tadpole splash, but he misses. He misses because Ted moves out of the way. Cody drop kicks Mark off the apron. Oh, he hooked that little leg. He's getting mad that he hooked the leprechaun leg for the pinfall. I thought that was great. I love that this is the segment that A, gives Chavo his revenge, and B, gives Legacy the much-needed heat they need in their matchup against DX at SummerSlam. Then after the match, Ted and Cody have mics. They're on stage, and Ted says, we are not afraid of the DX reunion. We are ready. This will be the shortest-lived comeback in WWE history. And then Cody wraps up by saying, if you're not down with that, we got 2 words for you, too bad. It's very fitting that for, this storyline involving DX, that the only way Legacy can really get their heat and get people to boo them is by them beating up a little person in Hornswoggle. Like, that's the most they're going to get, I think, during the build to this. But again, why didn't Chavo Guerrero think of this sooner? Just get somebody else to do your dirty work. We see Chris Jericho and Josh Matthews in the promo zone, and Jericho is, very uncharacteristically big up on something besides himself. He's very much rah-rah Canada. I spent 7 years living here, and of course this is where I learned to wrestle, so it is going to be great that I beat John Cena here for the very first time here tonight in Calgary. And then Big Show walks in to interrupt the promo. He's upset about what happened in the match with Orton, and then Jericho is like, don't worry about it, it's going to be great. These fans are going to cheer me, and they're going to boo John Cena. And the fans hear this, and they're like, yay, that's true. And then Jericho keeps going, unaware that they're still on the air in kayfabe, and he's like, and all these losers bought it. Like, I hate Canada. I wasn't even born here. I'm American. Da, 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 da. And he's just, again, healing. Hey, he's pulling R.J. Fletcher in UHF. He can't stop putting his foot in his mouth near the end. And then Josh Matthews comes in and says, hey guys, we're actually still on the air. And then they realize they have truly stepped in it. And only on Wrestling with Regret are you going to get 2 UHF references in one video about 2009 Raw. They give us a breakdown of the SummerSlam card, and then we move on to our main event, Chris Jericho versus John Cena. I do think it's funny that they tried to, subvert the possibility of the fans hijacking this match and cheering Jericho more than Cena by having Jericho then kind of heel on Canada at the very end just before his matchup. I don't think they had to work that hard at it though, because I think the fans were already, again, primed to cheer John in this one. Jerry Lawler, again, in this match, Bizarro land. There's been nothing bizarre about the crowd tonight, except they're really fucking bored and quiet. But they're not giving you any real opposite reactions, not like what I think you were preparing for. I guess it is bizarre in the way that every time Cena does something, the reaction does change. It's not all cheering for John. And it's sometimes they cheer him, sometimes they boo him. I wish this crowd would make up their minds. I guess that is the bizarre thing about it. But if they're anything, they're quiet. And this is a good matchup here. You know, you think about their first singles encounters, you know, when Cena was so new in WWE, like 05 period. You know, he's grown by leaps and bounds by 2009. So it's not the same, you know, kind of dynamic. This is actually a good matchup here. The AA attempt is countered into the walls of Jericho. Cena rolls up and counters into the STF. And then Randy Orton just runs into the ring. The referee rings the bell. Why? Orton didn't do anything. Like, I don't get this decision they've made where now it's not even physicality that gets people disqualified. It's like the looming threat of it, or even the specter of it. Orton just gets in the ring and suddenly, nope, throw the match out. It's over. Why? So Orton and Cena are just looking at each other for a while. Then Jericho attacks Cena. Orton attacks Jericho. And then the Big Show attacks Orton. And then Sergeant Slaughter runs in and says, a 10 Hut, hey y'all, you just given me an idea for next week's show, even though that's not the show I'm hosting, but I'll have power to make a match for the next. Again, it's fucking madness. Don't try to make any logical sense out of the guest hosts and their power. So he makes a matchup for next week, putting Cena and Orton against Chris Jericho and the Big Show. Can they coexist, King? And the show ends with Cena putting Jericho in the position for the attitude adjustment. He gets him up, and then Orton intercepts Jericho with the RKO, and it is one of the ugliest falls I've ever seen Jericho take. Like, Jesus, that was a brutal landing. And so then they both just stand over Jericho's fallen, presumably shattered body as the show fades to black. I thought it was a good match up until the finish. I fucking hated that. But then we did end on an interesting point where it's like, okay, this is why we're having the match next week, or this is why we got the shit this week. It didn't make any sense this week, but it will make sense next week. It's a pretty good episode. I had a lot of fun watching it, you know? There were more good matches than bad. We had a fun thread with the DX reunion. We had a kind of fun return, albeit a little rushed, in The Miz. Good build with Orton and Cena ahead of SummerSlam. I think this was a really strong episode. I can't say I have too many complaints about it. However, the episode being as good as it is no thanks to the host. I did not know what to make of him in this show. Like, what was the point of booking this American gimmick just to troll the crowd? Like, that's something the guest host had never done up to this point. It was so weird of him. Like, why not just get Jim Duggan to do that role? That would have been funny. I would have liked to see Jim Duggan try and, wrangle, inter-office conflict and try and dole out matches. Tough guy. It was just so weird. But at least he didn't have any annoying backstage segments. At least he didn't say the wrong names of things, and he looks like he had some fun out there while he was there. So it's like, I gotta put him square in the middle for me. Not too bad, but not too good either. My nod for the best match of the night, I have to give it to the women's four-way. Again, it was a breath of fresh air, very surprising considering how the ladies had been booked up to this point in the series. So it was a welcome surprise, so I gotta give it to them. For the worst match, I probably have to give it to the pole match. The Miz, why'd they rush his return the way they did? They probably could have found a better match type. I don't know. The whole thing just seemed so weird and out of character for what this show was like at the time. And as far as the rankings, the all-time host rankings after this week, I'm going to put Sergeant Slaughter just below Batista and rank Slaughter 5th right now out of 7. I put Batista, he was the inaugural host, and I also made him kind of the baseline. He was the middle of the road. Slaughter, I also kind of consider kind of a middle of the road guy because he didn't really do anything like that notable or memorable. But the stuff that he did do was like, what are you thinking? What interesting choices the writers made for you. But what did you think of this episode of Raw, and how about this review? Let me know in the comment section below. Be sure to give the video a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe to Wrestling with Regret. Hit that bell icon to get all the notifications. Next time here on Guest Host Raw, we are going to have a unique case. Actually, this is somebody I don't think they advertised specifically on this episode of Raw as who's going to host next. But he's an interesting cat because he actually bridges the divide between Hollywood actor and WWE insider, because this guy was a former writer for the company. I'm talking about Freddie Prinze Jr. But until then, I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.